As you probably know by now, here on 207, we are talking with all the candidates for major office in Maine this fall. We're wrapping it up with Maine Senator Angus King, the independent, who is looking to get a third term in Washington. Thanks for coming in. It's good to have you here.
Good to see you, Rob. Always a pleasure.
Let's talk about age. You're 80 years old, running for another 6-year term.
Yeah, but Rob, I'm a year younger than Mick Jagger. Just note that.
You're a year younger than Mick Jagger. You're a year younger than Joe Biden. You're 2 years older than Donald Trump. You saw what happened to Joe Biden in the debate. You've seen Donald Trump at his rallies and questions that are arising about his mental acuity because of his often incoherent statements at his rallies. My question to you is, why do you think that you are okay serving a term that will not have you finishing in Washington until you are 86 years old?
Well, number one, I feel great. I'm active, I'm involved, I'm engaged, reading, learning, making decisions. People age differently, Rob. I'm sure you've experienced that, and I'm very fortunate in my genes. My grandmother lived to 102, my mother to 96, and so I feel like I can do it. Now, why am I doing it again at 80? I had decided 2 or 3 years ago that I wasn't going to run again. 2 or 3 reasons. One is there's so much left to do. Border security, reproductive rights, voting rights, all of those housing issues, all of those things, childcare, they need doing. That's number one. Number two is, here's what I've noticed happening is we're losing the middle in the Senate. The people I've been working with for the past 5 or 6 years getting things done, many of them have left. 3 are leaving this year, Manchin, Sinema, and Romney. And I just felt like it wasn't the right time to walk away given what's going on. The final reason is I'm now in a place where I can get more done. I can do more for Maine because of the seniority that I have. If this was a normal time, I think I probably would have walked away. I just didn't feel good about it.
Really, in virtually every election, as we all know the saying, the graveyards are filled with indispensable people. And the argument that, you know, the times require that I stay there is one that could be made at any time by anyone, and that's why there are a lot of people who've stayed in the U.S. Senate for too long.
I agree with that, and I've seen some of them, and I've just said I'm not going to be that person. I mean, I've worked with some of those people that did stay too long. I don't feel that I'm that person at this point, and I don't see a reasonable chance that I'll be in the next 5 or 6 years. If I am, I'll retire, but I don't think that's a likelihood because of the way I'm operating right now. I don't feel any diminution of my capacity. And as I say, it's you can say, well, you should have an arbitrary limit, 80 or 75 or whatever. I think the voters ought to decide that.
Let me ask you about the question that comes up as the most important one in surveys of Maine voters, and that is right now dealing with the cost of living. There's only so much that the federal government can do to try to push prices down. Let's look at it from the other side. What, if anything, can the federal government do to raise incomes?
Well, I think that's already happening. Interestingly, and it's data that hasn't sort of percolated out, but average incomes have gone up significantly in the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, faster than inflation. People don't feel that, and I understand it.
That's the key point. They don't feel it.
They see that, you know, $3 a gallon at the gas pump, or they go in a gallon, a half gallon of milk is $4. That's a real problem. I think one of the things the government can do is a lot of this inflation now, I believe, is price gouging. For example, 4 companies control 85% of the processed meat in the United States. That's a recipe for higher prices. I had an executive in my office trying to persuade me that the merger of 2 giant supermarket chains would be good for consumers. No way. I think we've sort of let our foot off the gas on antitrust over the years. So one of the things
are you saying that the Senate and the House should be doing more, and the next administration should be doing more to break up companies, to break up, if they aren't exactly monopolies, then maybe sort of cartels out there?
Either, I'm not necessarily saying break them up, but they definitely should be watching what they're doing with pricing. As I say, I think we've taken our foot off the gas in terms of antitrust enforcement. Now we're starting to see a little bit more recently, but I think that's one of the ways that we have to do that. But you talked about how do we raise incomes. One way we do it is stimulating high-paying jobs like manufacturing. there's been a significant growth in manufacturing jobs in the past 3 or 4 years due to some actions that we took in Washington. The CHIPS and Science Act, which has brought a lot of manufacturing of high-tech technology back into the U.S. Those are high-paying jobs. And that's where I think we can make a real difference.
Before we run out of time, I want to ask you about Social Security. As you know, the trustees of the system say that in about a decade, it's going to run out of money and not be able to meet all of its obligations unless something is done. What specifically would you recommend be done to shore up Social Security, which so many Mainers depend on?
Well, the first answer to your question is to recognize what you just said. Because a lot of people
knows about the problem, but we need the
but
specific
people are
answers.
sort of whistling
So what are
by
the
the
solutions?
graveyard. Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan solved the problem 6 months before they hit the wall. I think we ought to be able to do it now. And one way to do it, a couple of things we got to look at. One of the things is to have a real Social Security trust fund, which this Maine State Pension has a trust fund that they invest, and that revenue helps to sustain the system. We don't have that in Social Security. It's always been money in, money out. And I've been working with a bipartisan group in Washington on the development of a trust fund that we would use to supplement the revenues from Social Security that would go about 60 or 70% to closing the gap.
All right, real quickly, you said two things. One, overhaul or switch to a trust fund. What would be the other step, very quickly?
I think the other step is just to examine things like the cost. It's not only Social Security, it's Medicare. Big deal with Medicare is health care costs. My big passion is prevention. We've got to stop we've got to stop spending so much money fixing broken hips and spend more money preventing broken hips.
All right, we've got to let that be the last word. Senator Angus King, thank you for coming in. We appreciate you being here. If you'd like more information on Angus King and his campaign, just head to the 207 section of our app or website. Stay with us. Back in a moment.